Hello guys, welcome to my new video, and today we'll be looking whether patch 8.1 is going to save World of Warcraft. So this is a bit of a dramatic title that I made up, but I've been looking at patch changes for 8.1 and I've been kind of looking at the major changes that are happening, not only with the way you acquire your Azerite gear, but also with some of the big class changes. And the more I look at it, it's not unfair for me to say that a lot of people have been disappointed with how BfA turned out, and it's not only to do with some of the class balance or some of the classes feeling very lackluster in terms of the playstyle, not only in terms of the numbers they put out. And of course I'm aware of the fact that at the start of the expansions, Blizzard is going to try out and experiment with new things like Azerite gear, things like Azerite system, but I feel that Azerite system has been very lackluster from the very start. If you remember, at the start of BfA, Azerite gear was not tradable. It was really hard to actually get the gear that you wanted. High level Azerite gear, you couldn't get it through Mythic Plus. If you didn't get it in a Mythic Plus cache, you had to go do a raid, and if you don't get it in the raid, you have to wait until the next week. So there was a lot of time gating, and I feel time gating is important to some extent, because of course Blizzard doesn't want everyone to gear up in the first week that it's out. But I also feel that people who do have the time, who dedicate themselves to do Mythic Plus or whatever, that if they put in a lot of effort, there should always be a way for them to get rewarded for that. And with 8.1, they're introducing, as you can see here, they're introducing a new Azerite impurity, or that has been changed to Titan Residum. And I feel this system is exactly what most people wanted. So your weekly cash now is going to drop this specific currency. With the specific currency, you'll be able to buy Azerite gear. You'll be able to disenchant the Azerite gear that you don't want. You'll see here only Azerite armor that drops after Tide of Vengeance will scrap or disenchant the new currency. Of course, crazier things that happened before. So I'm still going to stockpile my Azerite gear in case it does drop that specific currency. But you'll notice that you will be able to buy specific gear. You'll be able to buy a specific 385 piece for 3,250 Azerite impurity, or if you want just a random piece, you'll have to pay 1,250. So there is a big tax on getting a specific gear rather than getting something random, which makes sense, because you'll have to, it makes sense if you want to target a specific one. But this system here that I'm talking about is exactly what people wanted. I would compare this system to what it was like in Legion. Remember when Legendaries came out, and then at the very end of Legion they kind of added this legendary catch-up system where you'll be able to get the specific currency and you'll be able to buy legendaries. And I feel this is what is happening right now in BfA to do with Azerite gear. They're introducing it in the second patch because they know that people are extremely unhappy about the lack of progress, character progress that happens in BfA. It feels a lot of people don't have the will to do Mythic Plus, don't have the will to do raids and things like that, because they know they won't get the piece, or there's a very small chance of it. And I feel this is really cool, and this just showcases that Blizzard is listening. And in my eyes, that's a really cool change. And then on top of the fact that you'll notice there are a ton of class specific changes. And I'm not talking about like this class gets 2% extra damage, or this class gets 2, like, we're talking about new talents, new Azerite gear, new abilities introduced to the class. And that includes things like Feral Druid, it includes things like Marksmanship Hunter, which have felt quite lackluster. It includes Discipline, well, this is to do with balancing, but Shadow Priests are receiving massive changes, and on top of the fact, Elemental is getting almost a complete rework as well. So you have multiple specs in the game right now that are getting some massive changes because people complain, and Blizzard is listening. So my assumption, or my summary of what happened in patch 8.01, which is the current patch right now, is that this is the beta. To some extent, the Battle for Azeroth has been in a beta stage up until 8.1, because Blizzard has received so much feedback. They received so much feedback about all of these classes that felt lackluster. Like I mentioned, these classes didn't feel bad in terms of numbers. Well, the numbers could have been adjusted, but also because of how they play. Maybe the resource regeneration was not great. There was tons of issues with these specs, and Blizzard are changing them. They're changing all these specs. They're listening. So I'm assuming that for the person who hasn't played BfA, and people will be telling them don't play BfA because a lot of people don't like BfA. They don't like the character progression. They don't like the specs. They for the people who used to love Shadow Priest, they don't like what happened to them in BfA. But I feel with patch 8.1, this is the start of the expansion. I honestly have really high hopes for this because I feel this is the start of the new expansion, because Blizzard has gotten the feedback, they listen to the feedback, classes have changed. Of course there are specific class balance changes happening. I know Blizzard is trying to get, you know, the less popular specs to become more viable. And you also see these kind of little improvements if you look at things like the new engineering battle res that's been added or might be added in 8.1, which basically allows engineers to battle res. There is a chance of a backfire and you can die from using it, but I feel as a person who's doing a lot of Mythic Plus, sometimes you don't have a battle res class and all of a sudden you're kind of stuck, and you know, you might feel worried if someone dies, it's going to be a wipe. So giving specific professions these traits or these specific like class abilities, and I don't feel battle res is very unique ability. I don't feel it's an ability that defines a class. I feel it's kind of like, you know, quality of life improvement that is very strong and very powerful. Multiple classes have it. So I feel giving specific professions these strong abilities is kind of interesting in bringing back professions into somewhat more fun, because I feel professions have been lackluster ever since Legion as well. They don't really bring that much outside of like maybe gold making. So I feel abilities or professions that are giving things like that are actually very interesting, and that's probably going to happen in 8.1. So overall, if I look at the changes, or if I summarize the video, will 8.1 patch save World of Warcraft? I really do. I really feel that these changes, that these classes changes, these feral druids, you know, marksmanship hunters, and there are quite a few other specs that could be fixed as well. I would love to hear opinions about which other specs would need reworks. I really would. I really would like to hear that. But overall, I am very excited about 8.1. I'm very excited about the changes that are happening. On top, I even forgot to mention the little small things like reputation sharing for alts with Champion of Azeroth, which I feel is really big quality of life improvement, because for someone who has multiple alts, being able to be exalted or whatever with that faction straight away is going to be a time saver. It's going to reduce the amount of tedious work that I have to do, and I can go straight to the stuff that I really want to do. Things like, you know, Mythic Plus, things like raids. So I'm looking forward towards 8.1. There's some major changes happening. There's some major class balance changes happening. Of course, there are classes that are getting nerfed and buffed, depending on, you know, how well they were performing. But overall, I feel changes like the new Azerite or the Mythic Plus currency is going to bring back the game into life. And if you haven't played BfA from the start, I feel 8.1 is the time to come back. I really do. If I were to say one thing about the whole beta process and about everything that happened with the launch of BfA, is that Blizzard needs to get a better testing platform or a better way of doing their testing, because the beta has been a failure to some extent, because there was a lot, I'm assuming there was a lot of feedback in beta. I know there was a lot of threads being made about certain specs that were just not performing really well, or just not playing well at all. There was a lot of concerns about Azerite gear, and I feel that Blizzard has just pushed BfA too early. Imagine if BfA took another month. Imagine if they waited another month, they tested a bit more, they fixed the classes, because I feel they released BfA unfinished. There were at least 4 or 5 specs that needed major reworks. Azerite gear, or the way you acquire Azerite gear, was completely untested. There hasn't been, I don't think there was so many mistakes made at the very start, and I feel that there needs to be a better testing platform introduced, or how they actually do it, because the game was released unfinished to some extent, and I feel it's only gonna get better with 8.1. I feel it's gonna be, I'm very excited for 8.1. I feel it's gonna get much better, but hopefully things like that maybe can be avoided in the future, because you saw BfA had a lot of issues, but I feel they're going to get fixed in the next patch. Let me know how you feel about these changes. Let me know whether you like. I personally really like the fact that Blizzard has listened and implemented these changes really fast, because before that it used to take quite a while. Let me know how you feel about this. Thank you for watching this little guide video, and I'll see you next time.